Hi, it's Lucy, and today I'm doing a little bit of a different video. This is a review video where I review two books at the same time. So as you can see by the title, I titled this How to Not Give a Fuck. That's what this is about, except I won't be teaching you that. I can't teach you that. I'm not qualified. But I read two books that were meant to teach me that, and I'm going to talk about them. I've been reading a lot of self-help lately. I am definitely not going through anything. I'm fine. So this might be a series if I continue to read all these self-help books. Basically, I read two books about the same topic, and I'm going to compare and contrast them. And those books were The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck, How to Stop Spending Time You Don't Have with People You Don't Like, Doing Things You Don't Want to Do by Sarah Knight. I have to look at it to read this off because the title is so long. And the second book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, A Counterintuitive Approach to Living a Good Life by Mark Manson. And so I read these two books. It was kind of a coincidence that I read them at the same time, but it happened. Yeah, I decided it would be cool for me to do a review video where I compare and contrast them. So first I'm going to talk about each book individually, and then at the end I'm going to bring it together. There are timestamps for the individual reviews down below, and then a timestamp for when I compare and contrast and say which one I would recommend and all that stuff. So the first book we're going to talk about is The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck. I feel like I probably should have said this at the beginning, but if you don't like foul language, then maybe don't continue watching this because I'm not going to censor myself because that's the title of the books. I usually don't curse on my channel, so you can check out my other videos. If you can tell by the title, this is supposed to be like a parody of The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by, I forgot who wrote that, but it's a very famous book. There's probably like 20 copies at your library and in the bookstore. Lots of people love it. I haven't read it yet. The title is a play on that. And Knight references that in the book. She read that book and loved it, so she decided she was gonna do the same thing. But for tidying up your brain, she calls it mental decluttering. And she wants to help you, as the back says, not give a fuck about family drama, having a bikini body, or Iceland. I don't know why that's in here. But yeah, this is supposed to help you get rid of unwanted obligations, shame and guilt surrounding those things. This, I would say, is more of a practical guide, as anything about this topic can be practical. She gives you steps to follow. She introduces the idea of a fuck budget. I know what you're thinking. You're like, what? And I was like that too. The idea is that as a person, you have a limited amount of fucks that you can give, and so she tells you to examine your fuck budget and then allot your fucks to things that you actually care about. And then once you're out, so you can stop caring about the things that you don't care about, or like you don't want to care about. And the whole book is basically about the fuck budget. The first chapter she introduces like the idea of not giving a fuck and stuff, and then the second chapter's on, she introduces a fuck budget and then gives you categories for your fuck budget so that you can clear up those categories individually, and she gives you ideas on how to do that. One of Knight's examples for what she cleared from her fuck budget was her friends really liked doing pub trivia, and she hated going to pub trivia, so she always said no every time they asked, but she always felt bad about saying no. So one day she just decided not to give a fuck anymore, and she told her friends that she hated pub trivia and that she was never going to go, so they should probably stop asking. And it worked out for her since they're good friends, and she said it in a nice way. A lot of this book also focuses on kind of how to say no to things without being an asshole, basically. You won't have to say no to things if everyone doesn't want to invite you places anyway. So she tries to help you with that as well. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I liked it. I feel like it's a cute little like novelty book. There's like little worksheets that I didn't fill out. Maybe I would have gotten more out of it if I had filled them out. I feel like it gives you like a good idea of things, and it kind of gets your mind going in the right place. But I felt like not all of her advice was very applicable to everybody. For example, one of the things that she decided not to give a fuck about was conference calls. So she would always say no to conference calls or make it very hard for her to be on a conference call. And I feel like that was in direct contrast to her advice. And her thought process here is that she was a good employee and no one was going to fire her over not going to the conference calls. And she turned out to be right. But I feel like that would not fly in a lot of jobs. Like if in my job I just stopped going to meetings, I don't think I would have a job. But I just feel like that was like one of the examples where it didn't quite work or it wasn't very applicable to a wider audience, and just things like that. And like I mentioned in the beginning, it's more of a practical guide. So she doesn't really focus on the emotions. Like, she says that she wants you to get rid of guilt and things, but she doesn't really give you a way to stop feeling those things. Like, I know you can't really control your feelings that way, but it doesn't really go into any kind of depth of that. It's just mostly saying no. And then if you say no nicely, no one will be mad at you, which should absolve you of guilt. But maybe I'm just a weirdo, and like, even if someone says, like, if I said no to someone and they're like, oh, okay, it's fine, I would still be like, oh my god, they hate me. But that could just be me. So I don't know if that's a real criticism. So that's what I have to say about the life-changing magic of not giving a fuck. It was good, but not life-changing. So now we will talk about The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. Mark Manson apparently runs a blog about topics like this. It's like a self-help blog. I had never heard of it before this. I had just heard of this book. Like, he mentions the blog in the book a couple times, which is the only reason I know that. But apparently this book is an extension of his blog, and this self-help guide about not caring about things is more about why we care about the things we do and how we can shift our focus. The biggest thing that I took from this was the idea of our values and how our values direct us to what we give a fuck about. So one of his examples in the book was David Mustaine, I don't know how to say that. I listened to the audiobook, so I should remember, but I don't. Was kicked out of Metallica right before they went big. Metallica is a very big heavy metal band or rock band, I'm not sure. I don't listen, but I've heard of the name. And so he was kicked out right before they got big, so he wasn't part of like their great rise to fame. David Mustaine valued being in an amazing band, and so after he was kicked out, he decided he wanted to be in a band that was better than Metallica. And he did go on to found another band called Megadeth, which is also apparently a very popular heavy metal band. I've never heard of it. I looked it up after, and it's a very, very popular band. And in his own right, he is successful, but based on his value of being more popular than Metallica, he wasn't successful. And so because of that, he still didn't like live a happy life, or according to the book. I don't know anything about him. Like, he was still always disappointed about it, and that's what he gave a fuck about. He wanted to be better than Metallica. In a similar situation, we have Pete Best, who was kicked out of the Beatles right before they went big again. So before, when he was in the Beatles, probably his values aligned with being the best. I don't remember what instrument he played, but the best at what he did. But after he was kicked out, he kind of shifted his values. And now that he's a grown adult, he now values his family more. And because of that, he gives a fuck about his family. And not really the fact that he was kicked out of the Beatles, because he shifted his values from being in the band to having a good family. So now he ended up much happier than David Mustaine. And I don't know, I thought that was a really great example that Mark Manson gave, because I feel like that example exemplifies kind of everything that he was saying in the book, where basically you have to align your values in a way that you can be successful. For this reason, I found that The Subtle Art focused more on the emotional side of not caring about things, you know. I really liked it for that. However, I did not like Mark Manson's voice. He also focused a lot on how entitled we all are about blah, 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 blah. I had to tune out. And he just sounds like, you know, that guy. That guy. That's all I'm gonna say. I just could have done without it. A lot of the time he sounded condescending and when delivering like his messages and things, so I wasn't a fan of that. And sometimes I felt he contradicted things. Like, one of his ideas I really resonate with is like, we don't all have to be exceptional, because if everyone is exceptional, then nobody is exceptional. And I really resonate with that. But then all of his examples are kind of exceptional people, and I guess I don't really know how else he could do his examples. But I don't know, it just felt contradictory to me. So that's what I have to say about The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And so both these books don't actually focus on not giving a fuck. They are both about realigning your fucks in different ways. Knight does this with her fuck budget, literally, and Manson does this with our values in mentally. So they're both about that, because they both recognize the fact that if you don't care about things, then you're an asshole. I would say if you have a problem saying no to people, then the life-changing magic of not giving a fuck might be helpful because it does give you tips on that. But since it doesn't really give a how on how to not give a fuck, it wasn't as helpful for me because I find that I care about a lot of things and I just need to care about, less things. Maybe I need to realign my values, as Mark Manson has told me. For that reason, I did like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck better because it was more helpful to me, but I don't like him as a person, or at least how he wrote. Probably not as a person, if I'm going to be honest. So I feel weird recommending it, but if you are interested in it, then I do think it is helpful. You just have to kind of read around when he's being condescending and annoying, and you might find it helpful. So that's my review video for The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck and The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I hope you found this at least a little bit helpful. If you read either of these books, let me know in the comments down below. If you want to read either of these books after watching this video, let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel because I make more videos where I talk about books, and I will be doing another self-help review kind of video pretty soon, I hope. And yeah, make sure to hit the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post that video, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. This is supposed to be like a parody of The Life-Changing Magic of Cleaning. No, tidying up. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to CVS and